It's been a tournament of lots of unexpected, strange, surprising things happening, but this might take the cake. Matteo Arnaldi has withdrawn from the second semi-final against Flavio Cobolli. He was on site and decided, nah, I am not fit enough to play. He cited a viral illness, did a press conference in front of a packed crowd, including Cobolli himself. I mean, yeah, it's been a very strange series of incidents.
I don't really know what to make of it. I think this is unprecedented, even in the most. I
I feel
mean,
like we're going to be ending up talking about this longer than the Zverev Menchik match.
yeah, we're not here to catch up on the tennis that did happen. We're here to catch up on the tennis that didn't happen today. I mean, very shocking scenes. I think it's a big shame. Firstly, we should make it very clear. You really don't want anyone to be in this situation where they've made like a maiden Grand Slam semi-final and they can't take to the court. So that is devastating for Arnaldi. And I mean, it's such a big opportunity. So if he could or felt like he could play it, I'm sure he would have tried. You have to assume that. But I mean, I have questions, Joel. I have
I
many
Well,
questions.
before we get into the questions, I will read what Matteo Arnaldi said in his press conference. He said, "It's difficult to be here. Last night I started to not feel well. Yesterday was fine, but I had dinner. I didn't digest well. I started vomiting at 1 a.m., at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. I started vomiting again. It was pretty bad. I was hoping it would be from dinner or something, but throughout the day, I couldn't eat. I just kept going to the bathroom." So that was his version of events. And then we got the official version or announcement to all the fans and spectators on Philippe-Chatrier, and they announced it officially as a viral illness, a viral audience, a viral illness.
Well, they might the audience might be going viral with a viral
Yes.
infection of something.
So on the screen inside Philippe-Chatrier, it said, "We regret to announce that due to a viral illness, Italian player Matteo Arnaldi has been forced to withdraw from his semi-final match against Flavio Cobolli. All spectators holding a ticket for the second men's singles semi-final will receive a full refund." And it goes on to say, actually, I quite like this, was quite a nice touch, which again is a question for me. Flavio Cobolli will practice at 7:15 p.m. on Philippe-Chatrier, and this practice session will be open to the public. So, yeah, we had the statement from Roland-Garros. We had the statement as well from Arnaldi. I mean, let's start with what the player was saying and where he was saying it, because I think the context of where he was saying it was almost as surprising as what he was saying as well.
It really was. And I mean, I don't think I've ever seen this before, that a joint press conference. That's something very, very
Oh, I
unusual.
even forgot about that. Yeah, he was sitting at the table either side of like the center bit with Cobolli on the left and Arnaldi on the right.
So he's in the same room as his friend, his countryman, and now the finalist of Roland-Garros, whilst he is telling the members of the media that he has a viral illness. That to me is concerning. I
Yes.
don't really understand what's going on here as to who would end up greenlighting this, that they think this is a good idea from his camp, from their camp, from the tournament's camp. I do not understand, because that seems very concerning. I don't think I've ever seen a joint press conference before for something like this. In fact, I was thinking more, Joel, if someone is withdrawing with an illness, a viral illness, it probably falls more into like the COVID side of things where, you don't have a press conference, you stay away from other people. And I guess that's my big question here is, how on earth did we end up here? And why? I do understand, of course I understand that, if you are unwell and you think there's a chance, a possibility you can play, coming to the site does make sense. Seeing if you can hit, he wasn't able to hit, okay, fine. But you don't then spend time with the person who you would most want to not spend time with and is most at risk for the tournament, because the tournament doesn't want them in the same room together, surely. They're sort of socially distanced, we should say. There's like, normally there's the Perrier bottle either side. They are way out from that. And in the middle, I have to say, it's my
It's still
favorite
taking
image.
a chance, though.
It is taking a chance.
Taking a chance.
But it's my favorite image because it says only at Roland-Garros is what it says under the desk. And this is so
That
true.
feels meme. It feels meme worthy, doesn't it?
It's a meme. The whole of Roland-Garros this year is a meme, Joel. I think we have to just agree that that is the case. But I mean, aside from the obvious like ridiculousness of the fact that they're in the same room together, I do have question marks around how sick he is. And if it is like, is it a viral illness? Has he been diagnosed with that? It does sound a lot like food poisoning, if I'm completely honest. I'm also not a doctor. That was the first question that was asked. And he said he thought it was a viral illness because he had a temperature. And I'm like, well, you can have a temperature from food poisoning. So that's one question that I don't think we have an answer to. But then the other side of it is, if you are so sick, I don't really expect you to be able to get yourself out of bed, get yourself on site, walk onto site, potentially try and practice. He didn't end up practicing, I don't think. Then get yourself to press, hold a press conference. You know, that's a long time he spent up at Roland-Garros. And I don't know anyone who's been like very sick with flu who's been able to get out of bed. That is what happens when you have the flu.
I can only think perhaps that he would have felt so desperate to play this match. I mean, he might never be in a Grand Slam semi-final again. This might be his one moment. So I can only think that his desperation to play and to play his fellow countrymen as well, I think perhaps motivated him to go to the site and maybe hope that he would feel better. But having said that, I am with you. I'm a bit surprised if he has no energy, if he's not feeling great, then how has he even made it to the site in the first place?
Even holding his head up, like when you're really sick.
He gave a cheeky smile actually when he came out of his car on the socials.
I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt because he was also smiling throughout this press conference. But I think sometimes people do that in uncomfortable or awkward situations, and people respond.
Maybe he didn't want to give the game away.
Well, I mean, he certainly did a good job covering it on his way in, that's for sure. But I guess my question is, should he have taken to the court or tried to, is a question I have, because I don't think that it's wrong to be selfish at a Grand Slam when, as you said, it is a semi-final. I also do understand that if you're well aware that you wouldn't even be able to do anything on the court, it's not worth going on the court. Fully understand that. But I guess it's the case of we are in this weird space of the tournament will have to refund a lot of money. Like they probably would rather you did try. At the same time, it's strange that you're on site and not going on court. We've seen people withdraw in different circumstances. We've seen people withdraw from Grand Slam finals before with stomach illnesses. I think we've had that with, Justine Henin against Amelie Mauresmo in a final before. I guess that's something where, only he will know, and we cannot obviously judge him for withdrawing, but it does feel like a player like Arnaldi might not get opportunities like this. So you are given license to go on court and not be able to play. I feel personally that is your prerogative if you wish to, because you've got yourself in this scenario. This is your right to play irrespective of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it reminds me actually of when Sinner faced Alcaraz last year. Was it in Cincinnati?
Yes, it was Cincinnati.
One of the American events, and it was quite clear that he wasn't physically 100%, but gave it a good go before retiring. And with this matchup, personally, I would have liked to have seen Arnaldi take to the court. And I think if you've got enough energy to get to the site itself, then I think you've got enough energy at least to try and play. And I guess maybe it was in his mindset that, if I go on the court and I'm not playing 100%, that's not a memory or an experience I want to attach to my, Grand Slam semi-final moment. It might kind of dirty that moment or be attached to kind of negative experiences. Whereas maybe from his perspective, not stepping on the court and just giving the press conference with his friend, with Cobolli, was arguably the best situation he could have made out of a really bad moment for him.
I do understand that. I think that's a good point about, Sinner. They played, I think it was 29.
Because imagine if he had stepped on the court and he just lost the set, like 6-love, didn't win any points. He was looking around. You would have felt like, I don't know, the stadium wanted to swallow him up. It would have felt even worse.
Potentially, but I think that's the point. Champions like Sinner, he played 29 points, but he tried. You know what I mean? He really did. And he was 5-love down. It was clearly not a good match. It was no contest, and he would have known it was very unlikely. But champions try, and sometimes champions can push through. And I kind of point to an example. I'm not saying that Arnaldi could have won a best of 5 set match, because that is not probably the case. I also think, Sinner wasn't even able to play more than 5 games, but he still took to the court, And I think people understand that. They appreciate the fact that someone is that driven to try. Like Serena Williams was in the semi-finals of the French Open in 2015. She was very unwell. She had a fever. I think it was like over 101. She really was not doing well. She was breathing very heavily. She'd had flu that week. And she actually didn't even do a press conference afterwards. She did come through that match against Pachinski, 4-6, 6-3, 6-love. And she was fetal in the locker room when her team found her. She'd been there for 45 minutes. She really put everything out there to try and get through, to get into this, into the next stage of a Grand Slam. So I'm not saying that everyone has that drive or desire. I'm not saying it would have been pretty. I think it could have been 2 games. It could have been awful, but at the same time,
just give us something.
Yeah, and
just
again,
give us a little bit.
It is his prerogative to pull out, and we aren't saying he made the wrong decision for him. We aren't, and that's clear. But I mean, it is quite unprecedented, and unprecedented to then do a press conference with a viral illness with your finalist. Well, it's not unprecedented, the actual withdrawal of the semi-final.
It's the 3rd time since the start of the Open era a player has been forced to withdraw in the semi-finals of a Grand Slam tournament. Famously, Rafael Nadal did it against Nick Kyrgios, Wimbledon 2022, and also Richard Krajicek at the Australian Open 1992 against Jim Courier. So yeah, it's not unprecedented. It's just very surprising and a very rare occurrence. And I think that's why, again, I think a lot of fans would have just liked to see him step on the court. But just talking about the press conference itself, if you were in Amelie Mauresmo's shoes and you could change the situation, or how would you have handled the situation? Would you have told Arnaldi to be like, look, you're sick, don't do the press conference. If you really want to do it, you can do it virtually or in a room with no one. How would you have handled the situation?
I mean, they have had press conferences previously when someone is pulled out for flu. I mean, Rebecca pulled out with an upper respiratory infection. She said that she had a fever. And she did a press conference in, I think that was 2023. So clearly, there is a media commitment that the French Open like their players to stick to. Players don't always do that. And I think that's the case, is that you don't have to do it. I mean, if you are medically incapable of doing it, that is okay. I mean, Novak Djokovic, he pulled out against Casper Ruud in the quarterfinals prior to that match happening. He did not do a press conference. They released a statement. With Wimbledon, with COVID-19 withdrawals, you are not doing a press conference. It's a statement. And I think that's what would have been appropriate. And I think the last thing that I would have done would be to allow Flavio Cobolli to be anywhere near him, because you have a final. And at the moment, you've lost the money, like a lot of money, like 15,000 euros worth of tickets, at least, if not more, plus the television advertising. That's a huge amount of money to lose, but a final would be even worse, and that's in 2 days. And these sorts of infections can come on, and if they've had contact throughout the week, you don't know what's going on now, and this is a really high risk scenario. So I would have avoided this at all costs, and I think that's what's so confusing, is that Cobolli's being very sweet and saying he almost cried when he was told, and I'm like, there's a lot of love.
I think he was blinded by kind of the camaraderie and it
was a very emotional
Italian element
closeness
of the semi-final, because you just can't imagine something like this happening with
Marta Kostyuk and Sabalenka,
Nadal and Kyrgios.
Yes.
You just can't imagine it. Do you think that kind of has sort of complicated the situation a little bit more?
I mean, I think emotions and feelings have got in the way of common sense.
Mm.
You know, you don't need. There's no requirement for Cobolli to do a press conference with Arnaldi about a semi-final that didn't happen. You don't. You have a pre-final tournament responsibility, and if they wanted him on site to do a press conference, he could do one. But this is not a media requirement for him. So in his camp, that's some serious error of judgment. You have to hope that Arnaldi's diagnosed himself wrong, and that it isn't what we think it is, because then we have a much bigger problem on our hands. So I guess that's one where I can't really fathom what's gone on. And I think it's one where hopefully lessons will be learned and we don't have stronger repercussions when the final comes round. I hope that, Cobolli's feeling fit as a fiddle, and I hope Arnaldi can, not have that on his conscience, as well as the fact that he obviously didn't take to the court.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting on social media, the conspiracy theorists are also out wondering around that sort of all Italian element, and whether this is like them scheming kind of project take down Sasha Zverev. And
you think that's the Italian agenda? Well,
yeah, and Cobolli is basically the best chance at doing that.
I mean,
is that a stretch too far? I think so.
Of course it is. I think in my mind, it's much more to do with, the Italian tennis community. I think they do have a closeness. It is almost like a team sport when you see them celebrating with each other, behind the wings. So I think it comes from that side of things that they are trying to be, united and support each other. And I think that can go too far, like today. And you just have to hope that, everyone is okay. It doesn't end up being worse. Yeah. And Arnaldi gets an opportunity to play a semi-final in the future. But, I mean, Joel, what will happen next? I mean, I'm just thinking, like, will Wimbledon have these sorts of things, or are we getting them all out the way? Please, all of them out of the way for Roland-Garros.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I feel like it's an inevitability of a tour with, loads of people moving across the world. It can lead to these sorts of things.
People getting sick. But I was going to say this as well. Have the players lost a little bit of that? I guess sensibilities around, everyone's taking selfies, they're signing things, they really are exposing themselves. They're going to restaurants. You are putting yourself at risk a lot more than I think makes sense. So I'm not saying that everyone has to be on lockdown, but I think you have to make sensible decisions generally in terms of who you come into contact with. And I'm not sure that everyone is remembering, what happened recently. I
mean, the final thing I would say is I just don't think the press conference should have taken place at all. I think
I didn't ask that question. Sorry, I assumed you were in agreement. Yes.
Yeah, I think it was done in
you
the wrong
said
way.
I think it should have taken place. I would have been like, what is going on?
I don't think I think I don't think it should have happened. If he was ill, I don't think there should have been a media requirement for him to do that if there was one. I get that he was on site, and I get that it was probably just a corridor away for him to go into a room, but to go in a room with 50 other people, including the opponent who's going to be in the Grand Slam final,
You were a journalist,
sure.
Joel. I mean, if we were in the room, thank goodness I left Paris sooner. I've got my health to protect. I've got a podcast, Joel.
But I'm not quite sure Amelie Mauresmo would have wanted that. She's already lost a match in the night session, which has probably cost her refunds for all the fans and the spectators. It's probably got the TV providers angry as well. So she was probably thinking, I need to protect Cobolli at all costs here. What's going on with this?
Or at least a mask
or
something, please.